we're going to look at installing Ubuntu on VMware Workstation. There's a few things you have to check before you start the installation process. You want to check if your hard drive has enough space. I'm going to allocate 20 gigs, so my hard drive currently has more than enough space. Second thing is have a version of VMware installed on your machine. Third is to have a image or a physical copy of Ubuntu operating system. And fourth is make a folder and save your virtual machine in there, because VMware tends to create a lot of temporary files that need to be in use while the VM is on, and it gets a bit messy if you don't have it. Say for example, if I've saved it on my desktop, it'll be very inconvenient for me to locate those files and delete them when I need to delete the virtual machine. Alright, okay, so let's get started. So you just go create new virtual machine, typical recommended settings, select I'll install the operating system later. Just do this so that way you can, because if you put the installer disk image now, if you apply that image now, VMware will ask you a few questions when you press the next button about user IDs and passwords and the machine name and stuff, and it'll automatically apply those settings during the installation process, so you won't get to see what more additional installation options you may have. So if you go I will install the operating system later, it'll virtualize the environment of a physical machine, and it'll show you the prompts and stuff that actually are shown when you're installing it on a bare bone machine, a physical bare bone machine. So I want to pick this. I will install the operating system later. I'm going to pick the Linux one. Ubuntu is selected for me. I'm going to use the same naming convention as my desktop, as what it shows on my desktop. Test VM Ubuntu, and the location is to be browsed to that folder. Test VM Ubuntu. Next, allocate 20 gigs. These two options here, you can pick whichever one you want, but I think if you store virtual disk as a single file in VMware, you're able to use snapshots, and if you store it that way, it just makes it easier to move, but it may decrease performance. And what snapshots are, because I always select this, and what snapshots are is it's pretty much system restore points, but at the current state. So even if your virtual machine is on, you can revert back to the exact same time when your virtual machine was on and you took the snapshot. So, and that works 100% because it saves it as a separate file. I don't know how it works, but it just works 100%. I've tested it and it works. Unlike Microsoft System Restore, where sometimes it may not be able to restore to that specific restore point. So I want to pick that. Customize hardware. I want to give it 2 gigs of RAM. I have more than enough to spare. I'm going to give it 2 cores per processor. Leave the network adapter selected as NAT, so that way your guest can use your host's IP address via NAT translation. By the way, you need to know this, because if you use this VMware for quite a while, and you're performing technical tasks on it, it'll start to ask you what a guest and what a host is, and you need to know the difference. The host is the computer, the machine that you're running VMware on. So this is my host right now, and the guest is a virtual machine. Just think of it that way. Just want to close this, finish. Now the environment will be made, and if you open this, you can notice the files are already generated. It was empty before, and you'll notice the size increase the more and more we use it, and every time you turn it on, the size will increase. Every time you turn it off, the size will decrease for some weird reason. I'll show you that at the end of the video, because when we turn it off, so it's at 2.56 MB now. Just want to leave that there. Cool. So we're ready to power on this. Oh no, we're not. We have to insert the disk image. So we want to go into edit the virtual machine, select the ID device, connect to the power on, use ISO image, find that image where it's on my desktop, click the OK button. Now we're ready to power on this virtual machine. And this right now is pretty much how it will be installing on a barebone machine, as if you literally inserted the installation CD into your CD drive or the USB, and this is how it boots up. And whereas if we selected the install, attach the installation media at the start, we wouldn't get this. It will just kind of go straight into the installation process, and it'll just be copying the files over, because VMware would have got the information from us and applied it to the OS, which is pretty convenient if you want to skip all this. But I rather just do this because I'll show you the actual installation process as well. And notice it was 2.56 MB, so if we close that and reopen it, it should be around 2 gigs because of the image. Yeah, because the installer images would be loaded onto it as well now at this stage. So you can go English, try Ubuntu or install. We want to install. And the latest version of Ubuntu that they released to this date is very compatible with multi-core processors. That's why I gave it 2 cores per processor. I do not want to download updates while installing, but you may choose to, because it'll make it very convenient. Because I want a quicker install just for the sake of the video. Continue. As you can see, 6.3 gigs is available drive space, so even if you gave it 10 gigs, it's more than enough, and we gave it 20. I hope I changed that. I don't remember changing it, but that's alright. Erase disk and install. Yes, that is what I want to do. It's a very simple installation process with installing Ubuntu. And while it's installing, we can just select our time zone. English, continue. I don't think you need a password. Log in automatically. It's asking for a password. Yeah, and it gives you some tips at the installation that you can go sweep by. I think it automatically does it anyway, even if we don't. What I'm going to do, this process could vary in time from machine to machine. So I'm going to pause the video here, then I'll come back when it's shown me a progress or shown me any signs of moving forward. It seems to be near the end of the installation process. There we go. So we'll just go ahead and restart. So if you want to remove the media, what you do is just go VM, settings, go here and just use physical drive. So that way we're changing it back to an empty thing. Click here and just press enter on the keyboard. We'll have a look at the folder size now while that's booting up. That's 6.18 gigs. So now this should be completely installed. So now at this stage you would install your drivers for all the extra hardware that you have. So your graphics card, your sound, your motherboard, your CPU drivers, stuff like that. But since this is a virtual machine, what VMware does is it provides a set of tools that we can just install, and that'll pretty much, that's the equivalent to installing the hardware drivers, and it makes your VM much more compatible with your host, so that way you can drag files over, make the resolution completely fit, and the graphics won't be blurred out or pixelated or any sort. So we'll go ahead and install the VMware tools. You'll click VM, install VMware tools, and so this should open. So what you want to do is right click the VM, that one there. Sorry, one sec. Yep, and you want to extract to, and just extract it to the desktop when it asks you. Just go desktop, extract. I think it's extracted now, so I'm just gonna minimize this so it's over there. Just gonna relaunch whatever that was. Okay, so now in this folder all these files will be there, so that's completely normal. And you want to open up your terminal. So if you click on this, so this is your search one, and then you type in ter, it should generally come up. If it doesn't, just type in the whole word. There we go. It just took a while to search it up because it was the very first starting of the machine. So in the terminal, what you want to do is you want to run a specific command to navigate to that folder. So just gonna close that. That was that relaunch one we did. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the directory into that desktop one. Desktop VMware. Cool. And now we're in that desktop. So if you go ls, it'll show you all those files. That's what we want. And now we're going to run with the privilege of admin, which you want to type in sudo install.pl-d. You want to type in that exactly. The D switch assumes that you want to accept the defaults. So the sudo is to gain privileges to the admin level, and then you want to run that particular file. And the -d is just to enter the defaults of the installation file. And if it asks you for your password, just enter the password that we'll put for the user account. And just let it do its thing. Shouldn't take too long. Oh, and the installation process, by the way, I didn't update you guys on it. It took about 11 to 14 minutes as far as I remember. I can't remember exactly when I started the time, but yeah, it didn't take too long at all with a dual core processor of 2.9 gigahertz and 2 gigs of RAM. So right now it's done because we can enter, it's back at the command line. So we can close this. And what you want to do is you can delete this now if you want. So I'm just gonna move our trash. Oh, there you go, move to trash. We just want to restart this now. We'll have a look at the folder size now again, just to see how much it's increased by. It's only increased a few megs, sorry. Cool. So at this stage, VMware Tools is installed. If you go View, Fit Guest Now, it'll automatically crop it, and notice the graphics are still intact. There's nothing changed, and everything is smooth and fluid. The mouse pointer is not choppy. Just gonna see how stuff loads, because it should seem like it's running very fluidly. Only then you'll know that if VMware Tools is installed. Cool. Yeah, so there you go, and that's Ubuntu. I'm actually not very familiar with the operating system myself. Should learn it. Okay, so we're just gonna power it off, and then I'll show you how to delete the VM and how you would handle the folders of the VM. So now if you notice, quickly, no, unlucky, fair enough, closed too fast on me. If you notice, it was 6.40 something gigs, and now it's 4.42 gigs because the VM shut off, and it would have probably has some sort of compressing convention that it follows. So this is the VM environment, and if you don't want it to appear in your VMware, you just close this tab, close VMware, and this folder is where all your VM data is contained. So if you delete this entire folder, it'll be the equivalent to deleting the VM. So just delete, and that's how it is. Thanks for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, please ask below, and I will get back to you as soon as possible.